mortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word.
Hey, welcome back to Frank's World TV. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about this project I've been working on called ShaZapp. Not like the kids' 70s TV show, which is Shazam. ShaZapp is a different product. ShaZapp.net is the website, and it is a bit like Shazam because all you have to do is just do some very simple steps, and you have, bam, a website. So, really, what is the purpose behind this? Well, let's talk about that. You know, there are a lot of small towns out there. There are a lot of smaller communities out there, smaller state and local governments that, you know, they have websites, they have web presences, but they don't have apps. Not just in our store, but really in anyone's store. And why is that? Well, you know, there's a number of reasons for that. One of which is there's this notion, at least among app developers, is that there's a way things should be done. There's a way things that there should be an architecture of RESTful services, right? Where you have kind of a nice clean separation of concerns and you have exposed services at the endpoint that any app on any platform can consume. However, this is not really the reality in a lot of state and local government scenarios. The fact is that they don't have exposed REST endpoints. In fact, many of them just have websites. And websites are great technologies. They work on just about any device. But the problem with websites is there's no native mobile experience. There's no native connectivity towards various devices. Aside from GPS, HTML5 can't really access any kind of built-in hardware. So to address that, I came up with this notion of ShaZapp that helps these smaller towns and communities get on the web. And how does it do that? Well, it leverages something called screen scraping. Now, screen scraping has gotten a bad rap in the past for some very good reasons. But the big vulnerability with any kind of screen scraping technology, whether you're scraping a green screen from a mainframe or doing web scraping, which is you're scraping the raw HTML, is that any changes in the source screen or source HTML can break your app. Well, I got a solution for that. And it's a solution I've been using on several of my apps. Text from last night at DC Traffic, as well as the area code lookup app. And I use this notion of having a definition file that's stored in the cloud. So I created this generic kind of all-purpose screen scraping engine that reads instructions from a third-party website or location. And ideally, that's a place that I can control. I can edit that file. So if the target website changes in any way, I can adjust my definition file, and my engine is automatically going to pull that down and reread the data. So I have this nice pile of unstructured data. Well, HTML isn't really unstructured. Let me take that back. HTML is semi-structured. If it was completely unstructured, browsers couldn't render it. So because browsers can render it, all HTML has some kind of semantic structure. It may not make sense in terms of converting it from a view model, but it certainly makes sense from a presentation way. And in fact, many HTML documents are, at least if nothing else, self-similar. So by using this definition file, and by using a utility that sits on top of it called ShaZapp, ShaZapp can actually generate an app as quickly as you can say ShaZapp and start flying around. Well, metaphorically speaking, of course. So, without further ado, let's switch to the screencast and let's take a look at it. Let's see if it works. ShaZapp! No. ShaZapp! I'm still here, aren't I? I still look like me, right? I don't have a cape, or I don't have like a red shirt or anything with the... No. I'm filming in my backyard, so my neighbors right now probably think I'm crazy. So in order to get started with ShaZapp, we'll first need to open up a browser window and go over to the ShaZapp website. So I'll go here and I'll just start typing www.shazapp.net. And you'll see that the home page is a bit plain right now, but that's okay. Most of the fun stuff comes when you actually build an app. So if you're completely new to Windows 8 development, that's okay. Everything you need is either linked to here or is available here. First off, if you would like to join a program that we have that's called App Builder, and will provide you with kind of 30 days of free emails if you choose to opt in, free tools, free storage, as well as free access to experts. If you don't have Visual Studio, you can just click on this link right here, and it will take you to a download page where you can download the free Express version of Visual Studio 2012 or 90-day trials of the more premium levels of the product. Once you've downloaded Visual Studio 2012, any version of it will do, you can click here and click here to start using ShaZapp. So the first step you'll want to do is you want to add metadata. You'll want to add information about the app, such as who's the publisher, what's your email address, what's your contact information. Secondly, you'll want to create data, right? I mean, what's an app without some kind of data? And we'll go through and we'll talk about that. And then finally, the third and final step is to actually generate an app, and we'll talk about how that's done. So first things first, let's click on Add Metadata. So you'll see we have fields here, such as name, about page color, background, publisher name, all sorts of information. If you have any kind of questions as you go along, you'll notice that we have a handy tooltip that becomes available for you to help guide you along the process. So first off, we need a name, and in order to get a name, we kind of need to get an idea in terms of what we're going to produce, what sort of app we're going to produce. So I will pick a place near and dear to my heart, Bayonne, New Jersey. Bayonne, New Jersey has a website, as you see here. It's a pretty rich website with a number of information and such sorts of things available. But you'll notice, if you look in any app store, there's no app for the town. Why is that important? Well, I think as we get into the app and device era, people are starting to expect applications. Much like in the 90s, it became, if you don't have a website, you weren't anyone. I think we're getting to the point where if you don't have an app in some manner or fashion, you're not anyone. Unstructured data, or the semi-structured data that's behind this web page, is sufficient to create some kind of data feed off of this. So we'll look here. We'll see that this is HTML. There's nothing really special about it. There's nothing really unusual about it. But you'll notice that if I look for information here, you'll see that there's a certain structure here. The link for the Office of the City Clerk is right here. It's inside of this tag for city government links. This HTML actually happens to be very well written, so you have a lot of class annotations in terms of what the content actually is. So we have a lot of structured data here that's really already exists. It's already public information. And why am I picking Bayonne, New Jersey? Well, Bayonne, New Jersey, if you look, is here. It's actually not too far from New York City. So, and if you'll see, it's right between New York City and Newark. And you'll see, according to Wikipedia, the population is about 63,000 people. So it's a combination of being both close to a major city like New York City, as well as a fairly sizable population. It really shows the fact that they have a website, but they don't have an app. So clearly, if a town like Bayonne, New Jersey doesn't have the resources, what chance do more rural, more isolated communities have? So ShaZapp was really written to meet the needs of this community. So let's go back here to my ShaZapp. I will call this the Bayonne Demo App. And I will pick a background color. And I'll just be somewhat arbitrary here. Pick yellow. So this background image URL is going to be kind of on the main screen. What is going to be the background image? Fortunately, Wikipedia has this wonderful picture of the Bayonne Bridge. And I will pick a fairly good size resolution. And if you look, this actually is a Wiki Commons. So there really ought not to be any copyright issues with this. So I'll paste that in there, the URL to that. And I will say Frank Lavinia and Frank at Frank's. Actually, I will use my franklide.microsoft.com and franksworld.com and copyright Frank Lavinia. So if you, in order to get into the store, in order to have certain privileges, you need to have a privacy policy. This is a hard requirement, and I would recommend anyone should have a privacy policy. If you have questions or problems generating one, you just click on this, and you'll have plenty of resources available. These are all third-party resources, and this is nothing really I have created, but if you have problems creating it, for the purpose of demo, I will just say this is my privacy policy. I hope you read it well. And of course, I need a URL for privacy policy. I'll just put in franksworld.com and I will click create. So now I've done step 1. Now I go over to step 2. So we'll just say this is for the mayor and council. So mayor and council. And we will go here and we'll say mayor and council. I have a nice image of them all standing by the Bayonne Bridge. And this could just be basic information. This isn't really necessary. Basic contact information. Let's just phone number, address, etc., etc. I click create. Oh, and I need to mayor and council. Fortunately, we have built-in validation, so you'll see that it's very hard to make a mistake on this. All right, so we now have a group that's been created. This is called a static group, and that means that this data doesn't really change all that often. So let's go in here and we'll create a new static data item. We'll need a name to put in here. So we'll need a name to put in here. We'll just call this the mayor. The mayor is currently Mayor Smith, Mayor Mark Smith. So we will put that in here. And we'll just pretend that his phone number is 201-555-1212. And we will go here. We have a nice picture of him. We will hit properties. And we will copy this URL. We hit paste. And we now have an item there. So we'll go through and we'll create an item for each one of the members of the City Council. Okay, so now I've actually used the website here to populate this data. So now I have a complete list of all the council members that are there. So now that I have all the council members entered, I'm going to click here to create new group. I want this to be a dynamic group. And in order to have a dynamic group, I have to create a definition file. Now, fortunately, I've already created a definition file, and I've already placed it online at a location I can control. So I have this definition file here on franksworld.com. So I will copy this URL. I will paste that here. Now let's go back to my XML, and I have several kinds of fields here. So you'll notice very quickly that I have a series of definitions inside of a bigger definitions XML tag. And what I have here as definitions is ready as a flag that lets me know if it's true or false. If something is changed and I've not had a chance to collect it, I can set the is flag to false, and the screen scraper engine should exit gracefully at that point without throwing an error. I also have a attribute here called target URI, and that basically points you to the URL that it's going to pull in the news from. So right now we are pointing to bayonnewjersey.org/category/news. So let's take a look at what that website looks like. Category/news. So you'll see this is all the information that's currently on there. So what does that pull in? So basically I have some information here. News articles is going to be what I call an iterator. This will pull back all the items that exist between this start marker tag and this final closing tag. Now let's take a look at the actual source here, and we will look for the content that's here. We are looking for H2 class title. H2 class equals title. And we'll see that each one of these instances have been highlighted. And in between each one of these instances is the actual HTML that we're interested in. For going further into it, let's take a look at my definition file. If I want to pull back the title of the story, we will see that the title of the story is actually right here. It's going to pull in all this information, and it's going to parse it. So the advantage of using the definition file is that if any of that changes, any of that structure changes, all I have to do is change the definition file, and automatically my app will be updated to read in that data in the proper way. So now we have that. We have our news articles is going to be what we call our iterator. News articles. Group key is going to be news. Group name will be news. And we don't have an image URL for this, so we'll click create. So now we'll see we have a broken image because we didn't define an image for it. And by default, this creates a number of field mappings. We don't really want that for this case here, so we're going to delete them all. All right, so first order of business, we want to create a new field mapping, starting from fresh. The variable we're going to call it is title, and the source file, the source definition name is going to be title with a capital T. All right, and we will want to add another one called subtitle. And the source for this is going to be the post date, capital P, capital D. Post date. And we will. So we have story text. And we'll add one more, which will actually be the story text. So we will go here. The variable we want to be called content. And this will all make sense in about a minute. So you'll see now we have two groups. We have a static group that contains the information about the mayor and council. And we have a dynamic group which contains stories about the news. Now you may be asking, why did I pick static versus dynamic here? Well, you know, the mayor doesn't change all that often. It might change whatever his term is. I believe it's 4 years. The council also does change, but it's really can be measured in terms of years. Whereas news, if you look at the website here, we'll see that it changes just about daily. We have a news story from May 22nd, May 21st, 2 stories to the 21st. So news really changes, you know, pretty much on a regular basis, pretty much daily. I'm ready to generate my app. So I click on Generate App. I'm going to click here. And we're going to see shortly we will get a response back. And basically it's asking me, do I want to download this zip file? So I want to save this here. I'm going to save this in a folder. And I'm going to click Save. Now, the download happens pretty quickly. Let's click here to open folder. And we'll see that we actually have a zip file here. I'm going to right mouse click on this. I'm going to choose extract all. Now I have a folder here. And now I have a complete solution here with all my source code and projects. So let's go up here. I'm going to click on the solution file. And the solution file should open up. Now I have my solution. It's opened up and we have a fully functional application here. So I'm going to run this in the simulator. And we'll see that very quickly we have an application that has all the news and information as well as information about the mayor. Now we'll see that the pages that are here This is all can easily be tweaked by the developer, and we'll see that we have information about each individual here. And but you see, not too bad because we haven't written any code. Now let's take a look here. We'll notice that there's no images here. Now remember, we didn't define an image for the news items. So we'll see here. But all the text is here. All the information is actually here. And if I click here, all the news items are present here. So let's go back and let's take a look at the code that was actually automatically generated. So let's go into really what's actually the core of this has actually been generated. What this actually is this entire solution is based very heavily on the default grid app template, which is why I like to name things consistently. We'll add another property right after this one, and we will call this background image, and well as include a link to an image URL that is of a newspaper. I'll hit save, and I'll run it again on the simulator, and there you go. Each one of those news items now has an image associated with it. Now, if the actual target site did have an image that was associated for it, we can certainly scrape the URL for that image. But unfortunately, the Bayonne News website does not. But this should be a great demo of how to get started with this. You'll see it's very easy to do, and it's just a couple of clicks away at ShaZapp.net. Last week, I was interviewed by FWTV, and I covered it for the big federal IT trade show. And this isn't necessarily restricted to small local governments and state governments. This could easily be leveraged for existing federal agencies. There's really no limit what you can do with ShaZapp, although the primary focus, since I work in public sector, DPE at Microsoft, is to create Windows Store apps out of existing web properties. That's primarily what it's meant for. But if you have a website, and if you can get permission to do this to a website, you can take any website and convert this into an app very quickly using your existing web properties. So next week I'm going to talk about an event I did called MoDev, which stands for Mobile Development. It was a hackathon, and it was a great time, and we had some really exciting submissions that used our technologies. And I'll show more of that at next week's episode of Frank's World TV. Until then, I'm going to go enjoy the nice, great outdoors. Thanks.